The city of Gotham mourned. Rachel Dawes, the shining light of hope in the fight against corruption, was gone. The explosion had left a scar not just on Harvey Dent's face, but deep within his soul. Lying in the hospital bed, Harvey stared at the ceiling, the pain of his injuries dull compared to the torment of her loss. He thought of the promises he had made, the future they had planned. It was all gone, and the man who had been Gotham's White Knight was now shattered, his idealism replaced by a void. Bruce Wayne visited him often, guilt etched into every glance. He saw Harvey not as a broken man, but as a symbol of the city's potential, a potential he had failed to protect. As Bruce stood over him, one evening, Harvey turned his face away, not from shame, but because he couldn't bear the look of pity. Days later, Harvey discharged himself from the hospital against medical advice. With his face partially hidden beneath bandages, he returned to the DA's office, his work now fueled by a relentless determination to crush Gotham's criminal underworld. Yet, in every reflection, every polished surface, he saw the man he once was slipping further away. Bruce's visits became more frequent, though their conversations grew colder. Bruce tried to reach him, but Harvey's focus remained unyielding. One night in the cavernous expanse of Wayne Manor, Bruce opened the entrance to the Batcave. Harvey followed him in silence, eyes scanning the shadows. Bruce revealed the truth. He was Batman. Harvey's reaction was not one of shock but of vindication. The man who had fought alongside him in court had also been fighting in the streets. Harvey saw an opportunity, a way to continue Rachel's work in a manner that even the law couldn't achieve. He demanded the mantle, insisting that Gotham needed Batman now more than ever. Reluctantly, Bruce agreed, seeing in Harvey a chance to rebuild Gotham's faith in the symbol of the Dark Knight. Over weeks, Bruce trained Harvey in combat, strategy, and the tools of the cowl. Harvey was a quick study, but his intensity unnerved even Bruce. While Bruce's Batman fought with restraint, Harvey's approach leaned heavily into his anger. Bruce warned him of the dangers of losing himself to the mask, but Harvey dismissed it. Gotham didn't need a savior, he argued. It needed justice. As Batman, Harvey operated with ruthless efficiency. The criminal underworld, still reeling from the Joker's chaos, found itself under siege. Mob bosses vanished, their operations dismantled. The symbol of the Bat became more feared than ever. But with that fear came whispers. This new Batman was different, harsher, more unpredictable. The Joker, locked away in Arkham, watched from the shadows. News of Batman's brutality reached him, and a smile crept across his face. The city's White Knight had taken the Bat's wings. The idea of Harvey Dent, the symbol of law and order, becoming Gotham's shadowy protector, delighted him. From within his cell, the Joker began to plan. Gotham's citizens, too, began to notice the change. Where Batman once inspired hope, now he cast a darker shadow. Harvey's methods, while effective, left little room for redemption. Criminals were broken, physically and mentally, and the line between justice and vengeance blurred. Commissioner Gordon, once a staunch ally, began to question the Dark Knight's true intentions. The tipping point came when Harvey used his infamous coin during an interrogation. In the dim glow of a warehouse, he flipped it, the metallic clink echoing in the silence. Heads meant the suspect walked free. Tails meant he faced Batman's wrath. The coin landed on tails, and Harvey struck with a force that left even Bruce watching from the Batcave's monitors in stunned silence. The Joker made his move. He leaked footage of Harvey's interrogation to the media, framing it as a descent into madness. The city turned on Batman, protests erupting as citizens demanded accountability. Gotham's fragile trust in its heroes crumbled, and Harvey found himself more isolated than ever. Bruce pleaded with him to step back, to remember who he was, but Harvey had already crossed the line. The coin, once a symbol of fairness, became his moral compass. Harvey's reliance on the coin began innocently enough. At first, it was a personal ritual, a way to regain control in a world where chaos had ripped everything away from him. The coin was a reminder of simpler times, a tool he had once used to entertain Rachel during quiet evenings. But now, it became something else, a crutch, a way to escape the unbearable weight of decisions. In his early days as Batman, Harvey only used the coin sparingly. When criminals were captured and the evidence was murky, the coin would decide their fate. Heads meant they lived to face the courts. Tails meant they would face the wrath of the Bat. It started as a way to ensure fairness, but with each flip, Harvey felt a strange sense of detachment from the consequences. The coin absolved him of responsibility, turning justice into a game of chance. As the pressure mounted, protests against Batman, mounting crime, and the Joker's escalating chaos, Harvey found himself flipping the coin more often. It became his anchor, a symbol of his warped sense of justice. What began as a tool for the hardest choices became a default for nearly every decision. The coin spoke for him, its cold metallic surface the only constant in his unraveling world. The shift did not go unnoticed. Gordon, already wary of the changes in Batman's methods, began to see the cracks in Harvey's facade. At first, it was the brutality of his actions, bruised suspects, shattered limbs, and criminals left dangling over rooftops. But when Gordon discovered the coin, it all clicked. This wasn't Bruce's Batman. This was something more dangerous, someone who had traded morality for chance. Gordon confronted Harvey one night, on a rain-slicked rooftop, the bat signal casting long shadows across the city skyline. Harvey arrived late, his silhouette darker and more menacing than Bruce's ever was. His voice was cold and detached, his movements rigid. Gordon wasted no time, his voice sharp with frustration, as he demanded to know what had changed. Harvey's response was chilling. He pulled the coin from his belt, holding it up so the dim light caught its surface. "Fairness," he said flatly. "This city doesn't understand fairness, Jim. They need to see it, feel it. This," he gestured to the coin, "makes it simple. No bias, no hesitation." Gordon's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, his tone growing more accusatory. "That's not justice, Harvey. That's insanity. You're gambling with people's lives." Harvey's face darkened, the scars on one side of his visage catching the light. His voice dropped to a whisper, but it was no less menacing. "And what has justice done for this city, Jim? Rachel believed in justice. Look where that got her." Gordon stared at him, searching for the man he once respected, the DA who had fought tirelessly for Gotham. But all he saw was someone consumed by anger, someone who had let the tragedy of Rachel's death twist him into something unrecognizable. Harvey stepped closer, flipping the coin once, catching it midair without looking at the result. "You want to lecture me about justice? Look around. The courts are corrupt, the cops are stretched thin, and the people are losing hope. This city doesn't need your moral high ground. It needs results." Harvey froze for a moment, the coin resting in his palm. For the briefest of moments, doubt flickered across his face, but then he closed his fist around it, his jaw tightening. Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Gordon standing alone under the bat signal. From that night onward, Harvey's reliance on the coin grew more compulsive. Even small decisions, whether to interrogate a suspect or let them go, required a flip. His actions became more erratic, his punishments harsher. The criminals of Gotham feared him, but so did its people. Rumors spread of the new Batman who no longer cared about right or wrong, only about which way the coin landed. For Harvey, the coin was no longer just a tool. It was a lifeline. Every flip was a way to silence the voices of doubt and guilt that haunted him. But as the Joker continued his manipulations, those voices only grew louder, pushing Harvey further into madness. In the chaos, the Joker orchestrated a series of attacks, each designed to challenge Harvey's ideals. A bomb in a courthouse forced him to choose between saving innocent lives or capturing a criminal mastermind. Harvey chose the latter, sacrificing the former. The city watched in horror as the new Batman's priorities became clear. The Joker's final move came with a chilling ultimatum. Harvey would reveal his true identity to Gotham, or face a night of terror that would leave the city in ashes. Harvey hesitated, his dual roles as Gotham's DA and its Dark Knight tearing at him. But deep down, he knew. This was the Joker's endgame. A game of chaos, with Harvey at the center. Gotham's skyline burned with explosions, the Joker's chaos consuming the city. Harvey Dent, now fully entrenched in his role as Batman, raced to an abandoned factory on the city's outskirts. Inside, the Joker had set his stage. A maze of hostages strapped to explosives, their panicked breaths visible in the cold, stale air. Harvey's boots echoed on the concrete floor as he entered, his gaze fixed on the terrified faces before him. At the center of the room, a large screen flickered to life, revealing another group of hostages, this time surrounded by Gotham's finest, including Gordon. 2 locations, 2 impossible choices. Harvey clenched his fist, the coin cold and unforgiving in his palm. His breath quickened, his mind racing as he weighed the odds. With practiced precision, Harvey flipped the coin. It spun through the air, catching the dim light, before landing in his palm. He stared at the result for a long moment, his hand trembling. Across the room, a series of ticking sounds erupted as the Joker's traps activated. Harvey turned to the first set of hostages, his movements sharp and deliberate. He began disarming the bomb with a ruthlessness born from desperation, his fingers steady despite the storm raging within him. Time slipped away as he worked, sweat dripping from his brow. In the distance, an explosion lit up the sky. One of the Joker's traps at the other location had been triggered. From the shadows, Bruce Wayne emerged, donning the cowl he had sworn to leave behind. He moved swiftly, his presence commanding, yet quiet. Without hesitation, he headed toward the secondary location, his mind focused solely on saving Gordon and the trapped officers. The chaos of the Joker's plan unfolded around them, fire and smoke choking the air. Harvey, unaware of Bruce's intervention, completed his task, freeing the hostages before turning his attention to the Joker's escape route. He pursued relentlessly, his cape billowing as he climbed the factory's steel beams. The Joker had left behind a trail of destruction, leading Harvey higher and higher into the skeletal remains of the building. At the other location, Bruce fought his way through the Joker's henchmen, disarming traps with precision. His movements were fluid, almost instinctual, as he reached Gordon and the others just in time to disable the final bomb. The officers looked at him with a mix of relief and awe, but Bruce wasted no time acknowledging them. He disappeared into the night, heading toward Harvey. At the top of the factory, Harvey cornered the Joker, the coin once again in his hand. His scarred face was illuminated by the flickering light of nearby flames, his eyes wild with fury. The Joker stood motionless, a mocking smirk frozen on his face. Harvey raised the coin, his fingers tightening around it, but the weight of his actions seemed to crush him. His hand trembled, the coin slipping from his grip and falling into the abyss below. Bruce arrived at the top level just in time to see Harvey falter. Without hesitation, he stepped between Harvey and the Joker. The two Batmen stood face to face, the firelight casting shadows over their silhouettes. Harvey's fist clenched as he prepared to strike, but Bruce didn't react, his stance calm and resolute. For a long moment, Harvey stood frozen, his mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The Joker watched with glee, his plan nearly complete. Then, slowly, Harvey's shoulders slumped. He turned away, his steps heavy as he descended the factory stairwell, leaving Bruce and the Joker behind. The next day, Gotham awoke to the news of the Joker's capture and the rescue of dozens of hostages. Bruce, once again operating in the shadows, ensured Harvey's name was cleared of any suspicion. To the public, Batman remained a hero, though the man behind the mask had changed once again. Harvey disappeared from the public eye, retreating into solitude. He left behind the coin that had defined his descent, burying it in the rubble of the factory where his reign as Batman had ended. In his absence, Bruce resumed the mantle of the Dark Knight, determined to honor the ideal Harvey had once represented. Gotham, scarred but resilient, began to rebuild. The bat signal once again shone over the city, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could endure. Bruce stood atop a rooftop, the city sprawling out beneath him, the cowl heavy on his shoulders. He glanced at the horizon, a silent vow passing through his mind, to never let the darkness consume him, as it had nearly consumed Harvey. In the shadows of a distant alley, a figure watched. Harvey, his face hidden beneath a hood, observed the city he had once tried to save. He turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the night.